Hello everyone, welcome to the channel. Hope you guys are all doing fine. Today we are going to be learning how to sew this asymmetric neckline bustier dress. This is actually what is trending right now, and in today's video I'm going to be showing you how to draft the pattern. I'll be eliminating the bust darts from this pattern to make it a perfect fit, so definitely you're going to learn a lot from it. I used two fabric for this tutorial, a white lacquer fabric and a black crepe fabric. You can use any fabric of your choice. The first thing I did was, on a plain piece of paper, I went ahead to mark out my horizontal measurements, which is my chest line, my bust line measurements, my under bust line, which is 13 inches, and my waistline measurement. So this waistline that I'm using is my front waistline, it's not my back waistline measurement. So my front waistline measurement is 16.5 inches, while my back waistline measurement is 15 inches. Since we are drafting the front pattern, I'm using my front waistline measurements. For the back pattern, I'm going to be using my back waistline measurements. So after I mark my front waistline measurements, I'll go to the top line and I'll mark half of my shoulder measurements on the top line and on the chest line, and then I will connect it like so. And then on this point I'll go down by 1 inch, while I will mark 3 inches from the other point and I'll connect it, and this will be the shoulder line for this bustier dress. So after that, from that point to the chest line, I'm going to divide it by 2, and I will now go in by 0.5 inches, and I'll use my French curve to connect. Right now I cannot find my French curve, so I'm just using my free hand to do it. So I went up by 1 inches, but I later reduced it by 0.25 inches since we are drafting the front pattern. So after that, from the center point, I'm going to be marking half of my nipple to nipple measurements on the waistline and on the bust line. And then from the bust line, I'll go down by 1 inch and I'll connect it all the way down to the waistline like so. So I'm going to be using a dart of 0.75 inches. I normally use half an inch on both sides, but today I'm going to be using 0.75 inches because I want this dress to be very fitted. And then on the under bust also, I'm going to be marking 0.75 inches, and that is on both sides, and I'll connect it using my rule and my French curve as shown. So after doing that, the next thing we're going to be doing now is, on that shoulder point, I'm going to be dividing it by 2, and then from here I'm just going to extend the dart line all the way to the bust line like so, and then from that bust line I'm going to connect it to the midpoint of the shoulder, and this is what we have, the shoulder dart. So on the chest line, I'm going to be marking quarter of my bust measurement right there, and then while on the waistline I'll mark quarter of my waist measurements plus the dart that we use, which is 1.5 inches. That is 0.75 plus 0.75 is 1.5. So altogether I'm marking 8 inches on the waistline. So from the chest line, I'm just going to go up by 2 inches. This is where I want the yoke to start from. You can go up by 1 inch depending on how low you want the yoke to be. I'm just doing exactly what is on the thumbnail right there. The next thing now is I'm going to go down from the bust line by 1.5 inches, and the reason is because my front waistline is 16.5 while my back waistline is 15 inches. So when I minus 15 from 16.5, I'm getting 1.5, and that's why I am taking a dart of 1.5 inches for the bust. So from that 1.5, I'll just go ahead to slash through the bust line, and I'll also slash the yoke out, and then I'll slash through the shoulder darts as shown. And then from here I'm just going to fold it in like that, covering the bust darts as shown. And then when you cover the bust dart, you observe that there is an opening at the shoulder dart. So from that opening, I'm going to be marking 0.25 inches on both sides, and I'll connect it. So after marking it 0.25 inch, on this point, I'm just going to be marking the distance from the one shoulder dart point to the next is 0.75. So I'll mark 0.75 on the chest line, and I'll also add 1 inch for sewing allowance. While on the waistline, since I've already added that, I'm just going to be adding 1 inch for sewing allowance without adding any other darts. So with this, I'm just going to connect it from the chest line to the waistline, and we are basically done with the drafting of the front pattern. So now all we have to do is to cut off the darts that we created while drafting the pattern. So the top part of it will be the yoke for this dress. On the yoke points, I'm just going to go down by 3 inches, and I'll use my French curve, or you can use a free hand to connect it, drawing the neckline of this top. So for the back pattern, I have here a plain piece of paper that I went ahead to draw out my chest line and my waistline. If you notice, the waistline is 15 inches instead of the normal 16.5 because I'm using my back waistline measurement. So just take your measuring tape from your shoulder through the back all the way to your waist, and that will be your back waistline measurement. So on the top line, I'm just going to be marking, just like we did in front, half of my shoulder measurement. So I'll mark it, and I'll mark it on the chest line, and I'll connect it like so. From there, I'm going to divide my bust measurement by 4, and I'll mark it, and then I'll also go down by 1 inch from the top line, and I'll mark 3 inches from that other point, and then I'll connect these 3 lines together. So from here, I'll go down by 1.5 inches for the neck depth, and I'll connect it to that point. While I'll divide this line by 2, and I'll go up by 1 inches from that point, and I'll connect, join the armhole. And then from here, I'm going to be marking half of my nipple to nipple measurements, and I'll connect it 1 inches below the chest line all the way to the waistline, and then I'll also add 0.5 inches for darts on both sides. And then after that, I'm just going to be marking quarter of my waistline measurement plus the 1 inch that we use for the darts, and another 1 inch for sewing allowance. While on the chest line, I'll mark just 1 inch for sewing allowance, and I'll connect it all the way to the waistline. I didn't add any darts on the chest line. And then from this point, I'll go up by 2 inches, which is what the same thing that we use for the front. I'm using the same thing for the back as well. And now I'll just go ahead to cut it out. By the time you're done, you're going to place the front pattern to the back pattern, and you observe that the lengths at the side seam, they are equal. Show that you have done the correct thing. So now the next thing to do now is I've gone ahead to trace out my front yoke pattern on another piece of paper, and now I'm just going to place them facing each other, and I will tape it down. So from this point, I'm just going to be marking my asymmetric neckline. So I'll go in by 0.5 inches from the neck width. I'll connect it using my free hand. I'll just draw a curve like so. And then when I reach my desired location where I want it to stop, I'm just going to connect it all the way to the other side of the yoke like so. So it all depends on what you want to do. I'm still going to go in by 0.5 inches like I did for the other side. I'll mark 0.5 inches, and now I'll use my French curve, and I'll connect it to that other point as shown. And we are basically done with the drafting of the front yoke. So just make sure you label it. And then for the back yoke, I'll go in by 0.5 inches, which is what we have been using. The down part, I'm going to go in by 1 inch, and I'll connect it using a French curve like so. With this, now we are done with the drafting of this pattern. All we have to do now is to place all our pattern paper piece on the fabric and cut, adding sewing allowance to the necessary parts. So in my next video, I'm going to be showing you how you can go about with the sewing of this asymmetric neckline, and I'll be using it to sew a very beautiful dress. So stay tuned. Bye.